to infinity and beyond.
This is me. This is how I win.
Were you rushing or were you dragging? Answer!
You're a wizard, Harry.
Say what again? Say what again? I dare you.
No, I am your father.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
And here we go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back inside the film room. Zach Owens here with Johnny Sobchak for another big episode. Johnny, my friend, how are we doing?
I'm doing pretty well, Zach. Doing pretty well. We're in full dragon mode, I would say at this point. I think that's
yes. It's like a step above goblin mode is dragon mode, because that's what we're in right now.
exactly.
House of the Dragon in full swing. 2 episodes in. We're talking about that today. We're talking about the latest news, TV and movie news that happened this week. And we will be talking about 3,000 Years of Longing, which didn't have any dragons in it, but it could have. I feel like they could have been blended in there at some point. But
You could have made it work for sure.
definitely. I mean, genies, dragons, like there's no limits in that fantasy world. But that's the schedule today. It's going to be a good one. Going to be a fun one. What's going on with you, Johnny, before we dive into all that? Anything popping in your world?
Nothing too crazy. Been mostly chill. As far as watching stuff, like I said, we are going to discuss 3,000 Years of Longing. That was what I got to see in theaters over the last week. I also went to the theater to see the new Dragon Ball Super movie. Big, huge, like, especially for anime standards, at least, like, hit at the box office. Was number 1 the weekend it came out, which is about like a week and a half ago now at this point. But my brother and I, we grew up big Dragon Ball Z fans, Dragon Ball fans. So we had never seen one in a theater, at least in my recollection, and not together. So we made a fun little point of going to see it, and it was really good. It was actually, I never knew. I'm not like a huge anime fan. I have nothing against it. Like, I actually do want to get into more. I've seen only just a couple, like Neon Genesis Evangelion and Dragon Ball, but it was really good. I liked it, and the subtitle was Superhero, which I thought was interesting because I feel like, honestly, it's probably one of the better superhero movies I've seen this year. Like, comparing it to like what Marvel's been putting out, Morbius and things like that. So it was a good time. It was very funny. Like, it was funnier than I expected, and the action was really good, and the animation was, for the most part, really good as well. So really no complaints. It was just a really good, solid film. So if anyone's like a Dragon Ball fan and hasn't gotten caught up in that or was thinking about going, I would definitely give it a thumbs up. And as far as TV is concerned, over the last couple of weeks, I'd say since like the rehearsal ended, I have been flying through Nathan For You.
You need more Nathan Fielder in your life.
I can't believe I was missing out. Like, the rehearsal was just a taste. I feel like this is a very different show, Nathan For You, for anyone who hasn't seen it. It's on HBO Max. That's how I watched it. And it's like 22-minute episodes. It was originally on Comedy Central for 4 seasons. And it started almost 10 years ago now. I think it aired in 2013 and ran through 2017. And you can definitely see like the architecture for what the rehearsal ended up being.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of like, it's more like almost like sketch stuff. And it's just like funny, like almost like more like off the cuff and like crazy inventive ideas, and like the way it's formatted, him going and helping these like different small businesses and things like that. I thought that was an interesting kind of like concept, and it's just really, it goes a bunch of different directions, and I think that's what kept me engaged. It's just something I could throw on in the background while I was working, or just easily go through a few episodes in like an hour or two. So definitely recommend, if you haven't seen the rehearsal, do that. If you're a fan of Nathan For You, obviously watch the rehearsal if you haven't, and vice versa. Because now I'm just like, damn, I can't wait for rehearsal season 2, or like whatever Nathan Fielder does next. Like, I just want to see more like from him.
Yeah, I need to get into that. I've watched like a handful of episodes here and there. I kind of just like this was long before the rehearsal even happened, but like I just seen all the clips. Like I feel like Nathan For You is very clippable, and that like you'll just see like out of context clips of it on social media. And so having seen those, I Googled like best Nathan For You episodes and watched a couple. I know I've watched the fake Starbucks one. Have you gotten to that yet?
Oh yeah, I finished the whole
Okay.
show.
Oh, okay, my bad. But that was most of the results came up saying that like that was the best one, and that it's just
Yeah,
outrageous
that
to
one.
see how his mind works.
That one was amazing. You mentioned that, and I meant to get back to you because I knew you had shouted that one out. And after I saw it, I was like, oh my god, that was like definitely one of the best episodes of the show, of course, but like just one of the most amazing, like bewildering things I've seen in like a show like that, or just even not even in a show, but like as an experiment, I guess you could say, or like a stunt. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and like the way he works social media and just like not even social media, but just the media in general. Um, I thought was like just, and I feel like I heard about that maybe back in the day and just never realized it or made the connection until now. But it's funny because multiple times throughout Nathan For You, he has something blow up, like, and he
It
gets on news out.
right. It's so funny when these like I mean we've this is like the next level of like I feel like you see things like this on TikTok or social where it's like we pulled a prank and tricked the media, but this is like such the extreme of that
Oh yeah,
that it's like this just I don't even know how to describe it. Just his like dead face, like super serious, like trying to like he never breaks the bit the way that he interacts with like the media whenever that does pick up. But like the local news reporting on it and stuff, it's just absolutely outrageous.
yeah. It's really it's hard to compare it to anything. I think is like the main thing I would say. Um,
Yeah,
and so I was really just a huge fan of that. And then uh other thing, small thing TV wise is I have been going through Barry, the Bill Hader
let's go.
show on HBO. And again, that was another one I've been meaning to get to for a while. I wanted to get caught up before season 3 came out in the last couple of months, but I didn't get the chance. And so now that it's all caught up, I just flew through season 1. Again, these are shorter episodes; they're like half hour. And they're pretty damn funny. Like it's a lot of it's dark humor, but it's a very funny show.
Mm-hmm.
And as we've been discussing, like it is listed in like the comedy for like the Emmys and stuff. So Bill Hader is unbelievable, like just so talented as a writer, as a director, as an actor, comedy and drama. And the entire supporting cast is phenomenal as well. I feel like they deserve like more hype and like more attention. I don't know if they've been getting the same like accolades necessarily, but
NoHo Hank is nominated
okay.
for
Oh
supporting,
god, I'm so
and
glad.
Gene Cousineau is nominated for
Yeah,
supporting.
Henry or Harry Winkler. Yeah, okay, so that's good. I'm very pleased to hear about that because they are both phenomenal.
I
So
love NoHo Hank so much.
NoHo Hank is like just one of the best TV characters ever. So I'm really glad to hear that. And
It's so funny to see him now. Like I was introduced to the actor, I can't remember his name, but I don't know if you watched the Gotham TV show back in the day on
oh
Fox. He was Victor Zsasz in that.
wow,
And now he's like this just like goofball of a
is he
character and
bald in real
very
life?
yeah.
Okay, interesting. Wow. But he's excellent, and just the whole show. I mean, it's shot beautifully. Like there's some brilliant editing in there. The way it's kind of cut together with, and just like the way they set up like really tense moments, and they like contrast it with like these ridiculous, like absurdist kind of like funny bits. It's really interesting. Like it's pretty unique. And I'm not gonna get any spoilers, but just the way Barry's characterized in his arc so far, I have like inklings of what's going to end up happening, but I'm like just very excited to like see how everything develops. And I'm basically right halfway through the show because I'm halfway through season 2. So I'm trying not to like blow it all like at once, but it's very good, and I'm looking forward to getting fully caught up because I know season 4 is already going to be on the way.
Yeah, that's Rebecca and I watched that within the last like month and a half probably. We binged all 3 seasons. So right there with you in this like late to the party, but just absolutely enjoying it. Um I think I know you'll get into season 3 eventually. That's the one obviously that's in the awards discussion right now. And I as much as it hurts my heart as the Ted Lasso spokesman, I think that Hader's gonna give Sudeikis a run for his money and may pull it off for best actor in a comedy at the
I hope.
Emmys. We'll see what happens, but it's an even more like you think season 1 and 2 are good, and then his performance in season 3 is just a next level of excellence. So I would not be like, I'm a Ted Lasso loyalist, but I would not be upset if that happened. I would respect it.
Damn. Okay. I'm hype. I'm hype. Especially coming from you. So yeah, that covers it for me. What have you been up to? What have you been watching, getting caught up on?
Well, first off, at the theater, I've been very active after a very slow start to the month. Let's pull up the old letterbox to give you an idea of the dates of these things. I did not watch a single movie in August until August 14th. So the first half of the month, I was just twiddling my thumbs, watching TV, busy doing stuff. So I've really gotten active, which it was a shame because I'm part of the Regal Crown Club, whatever it's called. And I didn't realize until halfway through the month that they were doing like a special August promotion, and they're like, oh, we gave you a free popcorn if you like for each visit, like you get a free something.
Oh, wow.
And so like I got a free popcorn, and then I got a free drink, and then I got a free nachos, then I got a free movie ticket, which like doesn't affect me, but like I'm able to use that on, like Rebecca was able to come with me, because like I already have my free through the membership. But anyway, it was cool. I went like the 21st, 23rd, and 25th. So I was like racking up a new free thing every other day, basically. But saw Emily the Criminal last week, which was I hadn't really heard much about it other than knowing like Aubrey Plaza was in it and that it was like this sort of like indie crime drama. I don't have you seen this or no? I don't think you have.
I have not.
It was good. It was good. I liked it a lot. It was really kind of like this like low key, simple thriller almost, but it was really cool because it did. I'm a sucker. I put this in my letterbox review, but like I'm a sucker for a movie like Hustlers or something where it like blurs the black and white and like that what the main character is doing is wrong, but you still root for them just because it does a good job of like characterizing them.
Yeah.
And it like in the grand scheme of things, like sure what they're doing on an individual level is wrong, but it's because of other wrongs higher up. But this is cool. It's basically just like this whole movie about like credit card fraud and like the underworld scheming with that. But Aubrey Plaza was really, really good in that. I gave that a 3.5, a solid 78 out of 100 there. So that was a good surprise going in without really knowing much. And then saw Where the Crawdads Sing at last. Because I know I'd mentioned previously that was one that I'd read the book. Rebecca had read the book and wanted to see it. So we had a little date night, went and saw that. And it was unfortunately about what I expected. The review, I think I'd mentioned last week on the podcast that like I'd read the book. It was during the main hype of everything.
Yeah.
I thought it was fine. Like I enjoyed it. I thought it was fine, but I wasn't like blown away by it. And the movie was pretty much about that. But they my concern about it was true, that like it's in the book, it's like this like slow burn like drama, and then this kind of turned it into more of like a trying to be like a crime thriller, and it just like it's not an easy book to adapt to being like a compelling movie, I don't think.
Okay.
Daisy Edgar Jones, who I'm a fan of, from Normal People to Fresh to this, like she was doing her best, definitely like the brightest spot in this movie, but everybody else was kind of phoning it in. The tone was inconsistent, going from like romance to drama to crime to thriller. So it was just kind of all over the place and ended up being somewhat dull. So that was a 2-star for me, 42 out of 100. But
yikes.
Flipping over to the TV side, much more successful things there, at least more successful than the Crawdads. Finished season 1 of The Morning Show. Again, no, I'm super far behind on that one, since that came out like with the launch of Apple TV Plus in 2019, but was really blown away by that. I knew it was supposed to be good. I'd just kind of been sitting on it for forever, but finally caught up. The last 3 episodes of season 1 were just like back to back to back, like powerhouses. And it was really solid. The first season was all about like the Me Too movement. The second season that I'm just now starting is like the COVID season, basically. So I'm curious
Oh,
where season 3 is going to go.
interesting.
As each one has kind of taken on like the current like thing of the time period where it was being made. So I don't know what season 3 will be, but I will say Billy Crudup, UNC alum, he's fantastic in this. He's very much like he's like this big TV executive, and he's just like kind of unhinged in like a Joker sense almost.
Yeah.
Like he's just like super charismatic, like does crazy stuff, and he's very unpredictable. And I love his character. He's fantastic. So love to
Okay.
see the Tar Heels doing well up there.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
everything else that I mentioned last week, all of the multiple different TV series, they're all still in progress. House of the Dragon, of course, which we're going to talk about. What else? She-Hulk, Harley Quinn, High School Musical, the musical, the series, season 3, The Boys, season 2. We're grinding away. So there's a lot of TV going on, a lot of movies as well. But shall we move on to what's happening in the world of TV and film, Johnny? What do we have?
Yeah, there's some bits and tidbits of news here and there, nothing too crazy. And most of it's honestly related to you guessed it, superheroes, comic book movies, comic book shows.
Unfortunately, it seems like that's all we talk about in the news segment nowadays. Let's mix it
Yeah,
up.
it's been a little weird, it's been a little slow lately, I would say, but I mean, at least there's some interesting news to come out of this and some kind of big shakeups. One of those, I mean, coming out of the MCU right now, we're just talking about She-Hulk, and Wakanda Forever is not too far off now, and D23 is really the big thing on the horizon, which I believe is the weekend after this coming weekend, so it's within 2 weeks. We should be getting news about projects, casting news potentially, and one of those pieces of news that we're most likely going to get out of there is the confirmation of what's being reported from multiple sources, which is that the director of WandaVision, Matt Shakeman, for all intents and purposes, how I'm going to pronounce it. Apologies if it's incorrect. Matt Shakeman is in talks to direct Fantastic Four, which would be the, I think, 5th live action Fantastic Four movie, none of which have been good to date.
Did they make 2 of the new ones that were really bad?
No, so they did one back in like I think it's the 80s maybe. Like the
Okay.
90s that was really like low budget.
94.
Yeah. And so that was the original, and then you had of course the ones from the early 2000s which featured Jessica Alba and Chris Evans,
And the Silver Surfer.
became Chris Evans. And the Silver Surfer was in the sequel. So it's going to be really interesting to see like where they decide to go with the setting of this movie, who's going to be cast in these roles. Of course, we don't know who's writing the film yet. But Matt Shakeman, he's mostly known for his television directing, WandaVision obviously being included there. He has Emmy, credentials. He did work on Succession, Game of Thrones, The Boys. So he has a pedigree there, and he's well respected. He's done good episodes, including the Game of Thrones episode that I think coming out of the later seasons most people really liked, which was the caravan ambush episode where Daenerys comes in and just goes ape shit on the Lannister, the loot train episode. Yeah. And so that, I mean, obviously there's a lot of effects there's a lot of action, it's staged very well, shot very well, so he knows what to do behind the camera for the most part. I personally wasn't that impressed with WandaVision as far as his MCU involvement is concerned to date. It kind of lost me there, and I don't think it was all the way through, especially as far as like the action was concerned and some of like the other effects things happening. But I mean, I'm gonna give him some benefit of the doubt. It's hard to say what's gonna happen just because with the MCU, you never know if people are really gonna be able to break free of certain constraints. I mean, Sam Raimi, he had some Sam Raimi isms in Multiverse of Madness, but it wasn't like, it didn't really feel like it went all the way. To me, I still didn't quite connect with it, didn't really enjoy it as much as I wish I had on paper. Same thing with Love and Thunder. And again, I don't know if that's something where like Taika Waititi was just doing whatever he wanted to do, if there were some other like MCU constraints, or just kind of the way they go about making movies is not like my cup of tea necessarily. But we'll see what he can do. If he does an amazing job, I'll be the first one to say it. And I'm hoping that we get a good Fantastic Four movie out of this. But there's still a lot of unknowns, and so my excitement level and my anticipation expectations could definitely fluctuate once we get some more news out of D23.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Wasn't particularly blown away by WandaVision. I know we've talked about that a lot. But along the lines of the Fantastic Four, there have been a lot of rumors this past week for the casting. You know, obviously everybody wants the John Krasinski casting. We had the Mr. Fantastic little cameo in Multiverse of Madness. Was that the real deal? Who knows? Were they just throwing the fans a bone? But Penn Badgley of You fame from Netflix is now rumored to like be in discussions for this role. So I've seen like the people have done like, you know, the fan photoshops and stuff, and he looks good in the suit. I like him in You a lot. It'll be interesting if this is the case to see, you know, him not play like a creepy stalker serial killer. It's a very different character, but I like him and I think he's very talented. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be mad at that. I haven't seen You. And I know it's hard. I don't really want to get too much into rumors unless you want to, but you know, there's
we don't have to.
Yeah, no, but there's a number of names floating around for like Sue Storm as well, which I guess is just a bunch of blonde actors in their late 20s, early 30s. So again, who knows what's going to end up coming of this, but I'm cautiously optimistic, but I just have a lot of reservations based on being burnt in the past. So we'll see. This movie is like what, over 2 years away, I think.
November 24. Yeah.
So a lot of time to figure out what's going to happen, lots of details to come out. But keeping things moving along in the comic book realm, we can get to the DC side of things, which there was some, again, pretty major shakeups here and some new news, some promising, some maybe less so. But they did some pretty big shifting around of the upcoming release dates for Shazam, Fury of the Gods, and then also Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Shazam, Fury of the Gods, I believe, was originally supposed to come out spring of, was it this year originally? I mean, who knows with COVID? I feel like things just have been moved like literally.
It's probably supposed to come out in like 2017 at this point. Things have been moved around far too much.
Yeah, so it's hard to say, but let's just say this will hopefully be its last move. It went from December 21st of this year to March 17th of next year. So a good solid shift of about 3 months there. And to me, that seems like a good thing. I think the movie's pretty much done. I mean, I know they've been doing a lot of work. Sandberg, David F. Sandberg, the director, on Twitter and Instagram, gives a lot of insight to his process and kind of the progression of things. And he said they're looking like they're in great shape. But I think what this ultimately came down to, and this is what he also kind of confirmed, is that this was opening, I think, day and date with Avatar, just a few days afterwards, one side of it or the other. And so that was not going to bode well, not only just because it's Avatar, but another high profile movie that's want to make, you know, even more money. It's probably going to take over IMAX, Dolby, 3D, anything you can think of. And so Shazam, that's a lot of money probably being left on the table. And who knows how long Avatar is going to be in theaters? Who knows how well that run is going to be? But March is quite a ways away from December, and there's no major releases really, I think, in the vicinity of that, or at least on the same weekend. So that should be, I think, a decent move. And then Aquaman, here's another huge one. This was coming out in March 17th. It was originally coming out December of this year, and then they moved it to spring. Now Shazam has its date, and it has moved all the way to December 2023. And that's Christmas Day. So they've staked their claim there. They're trying to be the big major Christmas tentpole for families to go see next Christmas. And I think, again, that's probably a wise move. James Wan also sharing on social media something that stuck out to me that he said. He posted some very cool artwork from the development, like concept art. I posted some on Twitter, but there's more, and you can go check it out on his Instagram page. He just said that, you know, the movie is supposed to come out in March, which is not too far away, and by blockbuster measurements. And he said that not a single shot of the movie is finished yet. So when you consider all the visual effects that go into an Aquaman movie, not to mention, you know, just like sound editing, things like color correction, that sort of thing, I'd say that getting that extra 9 months to really fine tune it. And we've seen, I mean, how many times have we seen people complain, myself included, about blockbuster effects, about comic book movie effects, especially in the MCU and even shows. And we know the visual effects houses are in kind of a dire position as far as being overworked and things like that. I'm sure there's still going to be some of that on Aquaman, as you probably would get in any movie, but I think giving it even more time just
Right.
gives them that extra buffer and hopefully some more reasonable hours and things like that. So I love Aquaman. I mean, I'm a fanboy. I really like the first one, even though I know most people are not high on it. So a little bit bummed to see that move back, but I'd rather wait and get a better finished product. And kind of same thing with Shazam. I think they could have made the December date, but if they have a better chance of performing and maybe getting more Shazam movies or more DC movies in general by releasing in March, I think that's probably a wise move as well. But what are your thoughts on those? Are you especially bummed about one of those, or what are you kind of thinking there?
Indifferent. I mean, I think I'm not like particularly bummed, but I think it's a good move, like you said, financially for them with Shazam. But with all of the shakeups at DC, like
Yeah,
Warner Bros. Discovery, everything that's happening, like the one, whether you like it or not, like the one thing that they've repeatedly said and that they've been committed to is, we're only making like top-notch quality stuff.
yeah,
This is not theater quality. This is not blockbuster caliber. Like, we're doing what it takes to make sure that that is the case.
yeah,
And a decision to push these things back to give them the most successful outcome, like, is a commitment to that. Like, what I know
yeah,
it's a bummer to not be able to see them as soon as possible,
yeah,
but in the case of Shazam, that's probably mainly financially motivated. But in the case of Aquaman, like you said, if it's
yeah.
going to take another 9 months to make this look even better, to make this be like the best movie that it can be, then like by all means, take 9 months. Like, I would
Right.
much rather wait and get to see a movie that kicks ass rather than have it come out in March and be subpar with shoddy VFX. So like,
Yeah.
I think that this is backing up what they have been preaching the last couple of weeks.
Mhm.
So I don't think you can be upset about that, because if they come
Yeah.
in and they cancel all that stuff, they make all of these statements and then they don't have actions that back that up, then
Yeah.
that's just like a horrible scenario. So at least they're like sticking to their guns here.
Yeah, that's a great point because they have been kind of beating that drum saying quality control, that's our main thing. We want to give these movies like the extra polish they need to deliver. And we're not going to release something that's not going to meet that standard. And I mean, that's good news to me. I mean, there's a lot of bad things going on at Warner Brothers right now, obviously, but following that, I think there's this famous quote, I think from a video game developer or creator, um, who said something to the effect of like a game that you rush out or that you crunch on, and you put out that's unfinished or not polished, it's always going to be a bad game. The game that you delay and you polish and get in proper shape and then finally release it is going to be eventually you're going to get a good game or a decent quality out of it. So I think that's kind of the same thing with this is you just got to make sure that you go the extra mile. And Warner Brothers, after taking so many hits in the PR cycle and with folks online just kind of really giving them hell, they had a pretty decent week. I mean, that news, some people were bummed out and kind of they're like, what is Warner Brothers doing delaying these movies again? But I think again, we're kind of seeing that there is like a positive side to that. And there was a couple other positive pieces of news I think that most people were pleased with, that we're getting some love for Warner Brothers is Matt Reeves, speaking of DC especially, got a first look deal, multi-year first look deal with Warner Brothers. The specifics of that money wise and how many years is not public, at least at this time, but he is coming back. He is locked in with Warner Brothers. He has that first look deal both with film and he was re-upping with the television production side of things. And that comes also on the heels of the news that the Penguin series, with HBO Max going through a huge restructuring, Penguin series with Colin Farrell that he is, Reeves is producing and whatnot and has a lot of control over, that is moving forward. They are going to be they're writing that now and it is supposed to go into production early next year. And also a piece of another bigger piece of news that came out of this was that the co-writing of the Batman sequel will be done in part with Mattson Tomlin, who I guess the report came out that we knew he had been involved with the original film to some extent, but the more details we got this week, it said that he came in to assist with like punching up the third act, probably in relation to, the big sequence at the arena and that kind of thing. So I think that worked out pretty well, all things considered. And it looks like he's back to actually write this thing from the start with Matt Reeves, instead of coming in like towards the end of that process. So that'll be interesting. He's pretty active on Twitter, so it's been kind of fun. I have been following him, and he's always posting about Batman and kind of things he's watching and doing. So worth checking out there. And that is supposed to be happening. The writing of that film is going to really supposed to start off in the next couple of weeks. So it's possible. Who knows when we're going to hear anything concrete about this sequel, be it a release date, a title, a villain, anything like that. It could be by the end of this year, might not be till next year. But again, this is something where I'm excited because I think as soon as Batman came out, I said something, tweeted something to the effect of, I think that movie worked because they let him do his thing and they really didn't rush him to go a certain direction with the script. They didn't rush him to a specific release date before the script was ready. And I feel like they're going, and I said that it would be a mistake to go away from that. And I hope that they continue that. And I think what we're seeing now is he has a co-writer. It's, we're how many months removed from the Batman? Basically 5 now. And they haven't even really started writing the script yet. So he's had time to kind of re-energize. He's going to come back with some new ideas, and there's not a release date yet. We just know that they are planning on making it. So let's get a good script in order. Let's not rush that process. That's kind of like the most important part in a lot of ways. And I think we should get something good out of that. As far as the television side of things, there's another couple tidbits here. The Arkham series, which evolved from like the Gotham Police Department series, that's still in discussions. Not clear if that's going to move forward or not. I think that'd be really interesting. Of course, we know the Riddler's in Arkham. Paul Dano could potentially appear in that show. It remains to be seen if maybe Gordon, Jeffrey Wright could appear in the Penguin show or the Arkham series, and any other number of characters. I mean, you have Scarecrow as Dr. Crane. You have Hugo Strange. So there's a lot of opportunity there, but not clear if that will end up happening. And then the other thing that caught some ire from fans was the Batman Caped Crusader animated series, which Reeves is producing alongside Bruce Timm, who did the Batman the Animated Series, and then J.J. Abrams. HBO Max is not moving forward with that. They did not, for financial reasons, apparently did not want to continue and deliver that as far as distribution. So that'll go to someone else who's going to pay them a ton of money, whether it be Netflix, Hulu, Apple TV, Plus, or someone else. I have no doubt that that's going to end up, finding a home somewhere. So, what do you think about the fact that WWE passed on that? And then, are you kind of optimistic about the whole Batman situation at this point in like the Penguin series? Or, I mean, I guess not you can't really say at this point after they canceled Batgirl that anything's locked in stone. But it seems like some of this is moving forward like a decent clip.
It seems like anything Matt Reeves touches is moving forward, which is
right, yeah.
A-okay with me. That's no secret that our devotion to Matt Reeves and the Batman and how great that was. So I think I love the big commitment between Reeves and the studio, the first look deal. I'm excited for them to move forward here, continue building out this universe. I would wager, the way that we heard about like rumors of talent being like stay away from Warner Brothers with everything that's going on, whether that's an actor or a director or anything, that Warner Brothers is hearing those rumors as well, and is not going to risk messing with one of their biggest talents that they have locked down in Matt Reeves. So I think you made the Batgirl comment, but I think that he's probably pretty safe over there, which is fine by me. I'm full steam ahead on anything that he's doing. I'm interested to see, not a huge like Batman animated fan or just like animated comics in general. I know we've talked about Harley Quinn. That's pretty much the only one that I've watched or am watching, but I'll be interested to see where that lands because of the fact that it just seems so strange that Warner Brothers Discovery owns DC, and yet a DC show could be on Netflix or on Apple or on a competitor. But that could be a huge acquisition. It'll be huge for whoever gets it, but I don't know, selfishly put it on Apple.
I think, I'm right with you, honestly, as far as the potential outcome of that. I think Netflix has its issues. I don't use like Hulu like super often. They do have good, content over there, of course, but I feel like the one that could benefit the most from this, and I tweeted this as well when this news was coming out, was like Apple TV Plus. They haven't dipped their toes into the comic book realm too much, or like the superhero realm, which is kind of nice because they're like the only platform that hasn't. But I think they could definitely benefit from a huge IP like Batman having an original series over there, and then it's also like an animated show, and they don't have like a ton of animation, at least animation aimed at like adults. So
Right.
I think that could be like a really like nice gem in their crown if they could get the rights to that, and get that distributed. But the last thing I guess we can touch on real quick before we go into House of the Dragon and 3,000 Years of Longing is, and again, this is not confirmed necessarily, it's not locked down, but there is potential, according to like multiple trades, that producer Dan Lin, who is a key producer on has been a key producer over at Warner Brothers for years now, including the Sherlock Holmes films with Robert Downey Jr. and Guy Ritchie directing, the Lego movie films from the original to Lego Batman movie, Ninjago, and the Lego Movie 2, and then It Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, which all, I mean, to varying degrees, have had huge success. They've had their own like creative stamp on it, and he could be the new head of film and television at Warner Brothers for DC specifically. He would be like essentially,
As they're putting it, the Kevin Feige
the
of
Kevin
DC.
Feige. Exactly. So we'll see what happens. There's not a whole lot more to go off of other than that. The most interesting thing that I found, and I put out there on Twitter, was this guy, Dan Lin. He was a producer on George Miller's Justice League Mortal movie back in the day. That was back in like 2008, 2009, which infamously ended up falling through because of the writer's strike. So it wasn't an issue with like the actual production or anything. It was just the bad timing. But he has a quote from afterwards, kind of in the aftermath, and he said, this was with an interview, he just said that movie Justice League was the reason that he like started his production company, and that was the ultimate project in his mind. And he said specifically that he thought of himself as like a fanboy, and that the opportunity to work with all those particular characters with DC within the Justice League was basically his dream. So, I mean, you never know with these folks. I mean, making a movie, being a producer is not the same as writing a comic book. It's not the same as being a comic book publisher or something like that. And being a fan is not necessarily always enough to end up with a good result, but he's shown talent within both television and film, on multiple different levels, multiple different genres. I think there's a lot of potential there, and he seems like he has different initiatives, within his production banner and things like that are promising. So he seems like all around a good guy, interesting producer, and like kind of creative mind. So I'd be very curious if it ends up happening. Again, nothing's solidified. They could go with someone else, or something, could end up different happening altogether. Could end up happening, but I would not be mad at all if they end up going that route. Because hey, what's the worst that can happen? It just fails again, and they reboot it. I mean,
Another reboot.
We've seen that. So I don't know if you had anything else to add there, but that's kind of an interesting thing to keep an eye on.
No, I think you covered it all. Again, not a ton to go on, just the speculation, a couple of reports, but that's a solid track record to have when it comes to someone taking over. But let's keep this show moving. Let's get into some House of the Dragon episode 2 talk. Before we get into the specifics of the episode, big news in this world, in this series here. Some good, some I guess questionable, not questionable, some to be determined. Good news. Just renewed for season 2 last week. After the first episode, before the second one even aired, they officially greenlit season 2. We knew this is supposed to be like, I don't know if there's an official number, but I've heard anywhere from like 3 to 4 seasons to adapt this whole overarching Targaryen story. But that's good news. Other news that just came out today before we were recording this podcast is that Miguel Sapochnik, the showrunner and director of quite a few episodes, will not be returning for the second season. So interesting. I don't know what to make of that, as far as, is it because of different like creative differences or something, or is it just does he have another opportunity? He's obviously been an up and coming person since Game of Thrones and other things that he has like put his stamp on. So is he going to step away to go and do a movie? Is the show in good enough place to continue moving forward without him? I don't know any speculation or insight that you may have there, if you have any, Johnny, but I think
I just got off the phone with Miggy, and no, but no, I mean, I did read a little bit more into the article. I think it was the Hollywood Reporter that initially reported this, and he basically just said he just needs to step away, like he's just tired, basically. Which can't really blame him. He worked on Game of Thrones for several years at the end there, directing some of the biggest episodes of television ever. And that's not just the matter of actually directing it on set. You have to go through the editing and all that stuff, promoting it. And then he jumped into the last 3 years of making and developing, directing, show running, all that type of stuff this first season. And basically he just said, I found it was the best thing, like professionally and personally, is to just step back. But he also added, and this is part of the news, I'm not sure if you touched on it, but Alan Taylor, Emmy-winning director of previous Game of Thrones episodes, is returning to the world of Ice and Fire. He will be back in season 2, and he will direct multiple episodes, and will be an executive producer. Sapochnik is going to be a executive producer, remain that with that title on the rest of the series all the way to the end. So that's not going to change. But he's not going to have the same creative role that he had. But Sapochnik just said that he felt like they were in a really good spot for him to leave. I think if they weren't, maybe he would have stuck around longer. But I think he just felt like the foundation's there, the numbers are there, the reception is there. And with Alan Taylor getting involved as a director, having some of that like old blood from Game of Thrones, and just having some of that consistency across those different shows. And keep in mind, Ryan Condal, who is the co-showrunner, was the co-showrunner with Sapochnik, is still the showrunner and is the head writer. He is the one writing the episodes. He's the one that is kind of the real puppet master. He's not a director. That was Sapochnik's deal, but as long as he's around, I feel comfortable, because I think the writing has been solid, very solid, the first 2 episodes, both within the dialogue and also the pacing and the general kind of structure of everything. So I'm liking that a lot. I'm glad he's like, if he was someone that bowed out, that would have been a lot more concerning, because showrunners are basically the directors of the TV world. And as long as he's involved all the way, I'm not worried. And he's also, of course, working with George R. R. Martin. He has a lot more involvement this time around than he did in the later seasons of Game of Thrones. So it's unclear at this point. I'm not sure if it was put in the article. I might have missed it, but if there's going to be, I would assume there's going to be another co-showrunner maybe added in to help carry the load with Condal and just have like a creative partner. But if Condal just went on and continued it on his own, I think that would probably be fine too. So we'll see. Nothing too crazy to worry about. It wasn't negative. HBO also released a statement. This was a pretty measured decision. It looks like they released a statement just saying that he's, done an amazing job, and that is still working with them. He has like a first look deal, I believe. And I would imagine he'll most likely, we'll see how much time he needs to step away if he ever wants to come back. But I would imagine the director's chair will be wide open for him if he wants to direct future House of the Dragon episodes. And I would certainly like to see that. But otherwise, it's certainly been a good run with him in particular.
Yeah, I mean, the track record of his Game of Thrones experience to then helping launch this, it's very impressive, and also deserves it's a well-deserved rest for him. So hopefully he can find what he needs stepping away, because I imagine most people would be tired after this much Thrones.
Right.
But moving into the episode as a whole, the Rogue Prince, episode 2 of season 1. Quick, I don't even know if you'd call this a summary. This is the spark notes. Rhaenyra oversteps at the small council. Viserys is urged to secure the succession through marriage. Daemon announces his intentions. So the big players are making moves here. What was the overall reaction to this episode for you? Now that we are off the hype, I mean, there's still tons of hype, don't get me wrong, but last week it was so much of, oh my God, Thrones is back, let's go. Like, now that that's kind of died down a little bit, looking at this, I thought this was a fantastic episode, very solid, moved a ton of stuff forward. got me hyped up for what's about to go down. But there was like, I don't think it was as good as the first episode, but that's meaning it went from like a 5 to like a 4.8 or something. Like this was still a fantastic episode.
Right.
But I don't know. What were your thoughts here? We can get into some specifics of the episode whenever you want, different plot points and stuff. But
Yeah.
I think they're in a great spot moving forward here. It felt like vintage Thrones that we've come to know and love, as far as like the not needing like crazy action. There was no tournament here. There was no battle, but instead just very intense plotting and discussions and setting things up, because we know from the preview for next week that things look like they're about to start popping off.
Yeah, 100%. Things are going to get heated, if you will, next episode based on what we got teased. But no, I think you're pretty much spot on with everything there. If episode 9, like let's say it was like a 9 or 10 out of 10, this is basically like an 8 or 8.5, like out of 10. I would say it didn't have the same grandeur. Maybe it didn't have all the same like kind of shock and awe as you were saying of, oh my God, Game of Thrones is back. But it was still like very well crafted, very well acted. The characters are becoming even more fleshed out, which is what we want to see. It's not relying on spectacle necessarily. It's not relying on like big flashy effects. We did get a very, very cool showdown between Cyrax and Caraxes. And that was very neat. That's when Rhaenyra comes to Dragonstone and faces off against Daemon and just tries to basically kind of like call his bluff almost, I guess you would say. He's so adamant that he was going to be the heir and that he's going to take over. But what does that actually mean? That means that you would have to eliminate the one standing, in your way of being the heir. And he does not have the guts to do that. He is not, and ultimately it's not just about guts, but it's the fact that he does love and care about Rhaenyra and he respects her. He might want that attention that comes with being the heir. He might want the attention of acting like a moody teenager, but he doesn't want to fight his family necessarily, like at least at this stage.
Right.
So I think that was really interesting, but he, that we got some really cool shots with the dragons, some really cool sound effects with their voices and their roars. I just love the designs of these two so far. It's the only two dragons we've seen, I believe, at this point, is those two. And they contrast very well. But they also feel like they're the same, like family, or the same species. They just have their own unique color, their own kind of body type and shape. So really liking how they're differentiating those. And we know that there's plenty more dragons to come. So I think that's going to be important. But that was like the key thing. And then also, two other things that when we're talking about things heating up, we have the question of succession, the question of Viserys taking, someone to be his wife going forward. And then we also have Daemon, who is trying to figure out, how do I prove myself? Like, where do I go from here to try and earn more respect or create a name for myself or something like that? And by the end of this episode, we get some pretty clear-cut answers to what that's going to look like. And that's what, again, is kind of setting the stage for something pretty damn exciting, I think, not just next week, but in the rest of the season to come.
For sure. I guess you could say the big twist, but it was obviously, you were expected to know that this was coming. They did the groundwork. They put in the work to make this clear. But the twist at the end of the episode in Viserys turning down Lord Corlys's proposal for his daughter to bring House Targaryen and House Valyrian together, instead opting to go for love, to Robb Stark it, if you will, and instead choose Alicent Hightower as his new wife to continue, like you said, the succession line. But in one fell swoop, betraying the most powerful house in the realm, or in the 7 realms, and outside of your own house, in alienating Corlys and sending him away to your brother, who is already trying to fight you, and also betraying your daughter by marrying her best friend, who did not happen to mention this to Rhaenyra at all.
Who is also a child, mind you.
Right. Well, he
obviously that goes without saying, but God damn.
He upgraded from 12-year-old to 15-year-old, but I don't know if that was his reasoning here or not. But so, you were talking about like all of the different allegiances and stuff. And so like
Sure.
on one side, you basically have like Otto Hightower, Alicent Hightower. Now they're like firmly going to be aligned with King Viserys because of that marriage. And then you've got on the other side, we see Daemon, who is, now kind of teaming up with Corlys Valerian because of that dismissal from the king. So now one Targaryen is with Valerian, the other Targaryen is with Hightower, and now left in the middle is Rhaenyra, who is kind of spurned by both her father and her best friend, and is now potentially going to be driven to Daemon, but also at the same time, Daemon is her competition.
Yeah.
But now she might have new competition if Alicent, as we see in the preview, Alicent will have children. So it's getting messy. She's stuck in the middle as our main character, it seems. So it'll certainly be interesting to see how this all plays out. And at the same time, we've got Crab Feeder out here. Freaking teases throughout the episode, just a dude out here feeding people to the crabs. Like, what an adequate name for him to be called Crab Feeder. But it seems like that's gonna take center stage next episode. The costume design, the look of this guy was pretty creepy as far as Thrones goes. But could be both sides of the battle trying to assert themselves and take him out. We'll see what happens there. But the preview made it look like after an episode of just discussion that there was going to be some action next week.
Yeah, this looks like some of the biggest action, since the end of Game of Thrones, obviously. I think that Crab Feeder looks very interesting. I'm excited to see more of that character. Who knows if they'll stick around beyond next episode, but I think
I read something or saw something that the Crab Feeder character was not a huge part of the book of Fire and Blood. So that's an intriguing opportunity here of like, okay, like, sure, you've read the book, the Targaryen family tree, so like the overall outline of where we're going. This could be a point to kind of throw in some twists to have some creative freedom there. So that seems to almost put people on equal playing ground, equal footing when it comes to like not knowing the exact plot that this is going to follow.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. Yeah, and that's something that's cool. Obviously, I'm not super familiar with the text, but it sounds like it's so vague and it's very like subjective. I feel like there's a lot of opportunities to expand certain characters, certain plot points, fill in the blanks, and really like color the world and different kind of elements. I think that's going to be fun. And next week looks to be just an extension of that, as far as you were saying, with not just Crab Feeder but the action. I mean, the action, you don't really get that in the books the same way, at least in this particular book, because I know it's like written from a like someone's like perspective that's not really there. They're just kind of reporting what's happened. So I think there should be some fun visuals, some fun action sequences, choreography, things like that. But hopefully, I mean, I'm very much excited and looking forward to that, of course, but I hope that the drama or like the good character dynamics and development is still there. And I think it will be, because it's not just going to be the battle. I think there's going to be some other things happening with Rhaenyra, Viserys, and Alicent. So just another really solid week, really great episode. They really haven't, I mean, obviously it's only 2 in, but they have yet to miss. They've yet to even be subpar. So let's hope we keep it rolling.
Two quick things here before we continue on, but it's interesting to me. I've seen a lot of comparisons. I made the joke. How is there no when Catelyn Stark was trying to convince Robb not to follow his heart, but instead to team up with House Frey before the Red Wedding happened? How is there no like, you see, back in year whatever, Viserys Targaryen II did this and it ended up horribly for him? Like, how is there no learned lesson from that could pass down? Because these two guys basically just did the same thing, seemingly dooming their houses in exchange for love instead of strategy here. But I want to introduce, I don't know if we'll remember to do it next week or not, but I want we'll call it a new segment here.
Okay.
Before at the end of House of the Dragon talk, stock up, stock down, as we evaluate, the current standing. Who are you buying the most stock in
Ooh.
after episode 2 moving forward, and whose stock is plummeting right now? I'll start us with plummeting. It's so easy. It's Viserys, the king, making
Yeah.
bad moves left and right. He's literally unfit to rule so poorly that the throne is fighting back. The Iron Throne has nicked him on the finger, and he now has a rotting flesh on his pinky.
Yeah, that's true.
I didn't realize for a second why, what the significance of the finger injury was, until I remembered back that it showed him get pricked basically by the metal on the handle. And so I guess that's what grew into this. But it's weird because it's I don't know if that's something that we're gonna continue to follow, if he's gonna lose his hand, his arm, whatever, if that's gonna spread. Or not, if that was just a one-off kind of thing. But it's not ironic that the throne is fighting back, is showing that he is not fit to sit on it. So I think stock down is Viserys.
Yeah, not only is the throne not suitable to him, but his hand is rotten, which I think is a interesting thing to think about when you consider.
And there was also from the very first episode, whatever it was, we don't have any details, but they were inspecting that mark on his back. So this guy has some pre-existing health conditions that we need to evaluate, I think.
He's not going to get the health insurance he needs. Yeah, so I think that's an interesting point. Definitely selling the hell out of him. Very bearish on Viserys at the moment. And then I'm pretty bullish, I would say, on Rhaenyra, because she showed off a lot of intelligence and I think maturity in this episode with the way that she handled the Daemon situation. Her father, of course, wanted to play it like she was endangering herself, didn't know what she was doing, but she did. She was the one that could know how Daemon was going to react, and that she could basically play into what he was doing, and not only get the egg back, but kind of escalate the situation between him and Otto, and they were about to fight, and the dragon, etc. So I'm very confident in her abilities politically, and I think she can definitely take care of herself going forward. And I think that's one that in particular I think is very strong at the moment.
Yeah, obviously she's the protagonist of this story so far. She's been put front and center. She's an easy fan favorite. I'm with you there. I would also say that Corlys is climbing the rankings this week after standing up to the king in some instances.
Yeah, trying
to make his move there, not being afraid to speak out, but then also when that didn't work out, taking matters into his own hands, going to Daemon, and it seems like those two are going to figure out a way to work together. So I think that he could be a sneaky, significant player here in the coming weeks.
Sneaky.
That's fun. We got to remember to keep that going. But moving straight along from House of the Dragon, another good episode. We'll be talking it when we get back for the next episode. But to wrap things up today, we are talking about 3,000 Years of Longing, new from director George Miller, his first film since Mad Max Fury Road. And I don't think it could be any more different than Mad Max Fury Road. Both have some fantasy elements in there, but we are not on a violent road trip across the desert here. Instead, it's a nice hotel room fantasy, it seems. So 3,000 Years of Longing. Let me lay the foundation for you, and then we'll dive right in. Idris Elba, Tilda Swinton are the main characters here, the stars, currently sitting at a 71% critic score, 73% audience score, I believe. So pretty in line there. I was right around there, 75 out of 100 for me. I enjoyed this quite a bit, although it wasn't what I was expecting. We'll get into that. Johnny, do you have a score before we get into it?
Yeah, I gave it a solid 3.5 out of 5. I'd say around a 70 out of 100 or so. I really had a good time with it, and it definitely just a different experience, different kind of movie than really anything I think I've seen this year.
Yeah, it's nice that we're all, the critics, the audience, and both of us all in the sort of same ballpark here. But let me give you the plot, and then we'll break it all down. I can't even remember how to say her name. Dr. Alethea, I believe is how they said it.
Alethea, yeah.
Alethea Binney, Tilda Swinton, is an academic, content with life and a creature of reason. While in Istanbul attending a conference, she happens to encounter a djinn, Idris Elba, who offers her 3 wishes in exchange for his freedom. This presents 2 problems. First, she doubts that he is real, and second, because she is a scholar of story and mythology, she knows all the cautionary tales of wishes gone wrong. The djinn pleads his case by telling her fantastical stories of his past. Eventually, she is beguiled and makes a wish that surprises them both. So, if you saw the trailer for this movie, this is the first thing off the bat that I want to talk about, because this was a very high energy, like bombastic sort of trailer, like upbeat rock music, and lots of like quick cuts showing all of the exotic, fantastical settings and sequences, and making it seem like this was going to be some like high energy, like epic adventure almost. But instead, the result was this, it mainly takes place like in a hotel room, but there's stories being told that take you to the other fantastic lands. But it's just a lot of like sentimental storytelling, like introspective thoughts about storytelling and its role in society today, like much more tender and reflective than what I anticipated, especially seeing that trailer and knowing that this was the guy who made Fury Road. Like, I don't know if that was just me or if that was something that you felt as well. But I enjoyed it, but not at all what I was expecting.
Yeah, I mean, I had some idea that was going to be, the kind of the feel of it. I wasn't expecting like an action movie. I wasn't expecting something like super high tempo, just because I had read a little bit more about it, or had more of an idea of maybe what the story was going to end up feeling like. But I was keen on that, and I think I got what I wanted out of it. It was definitely more tender than I expected. It was more romantic in a lot of ways. Without spoiling anything, it went some places I wasn't like necessarily seeing totally. But I liked that a lot, and I thought it was just a nice, this movie cost like 60-70 million dollars. There's a lot of effects in it. There's a lot of, a very big sets, lots of costumes, bright colorful costumes, some of the best I've seen all year. And the makeup goes crazy, the hair like designs and things like that, all very impressive. And also some excellent cinematography as well, from John Seal. I thought he did a great job. And it's just a very, and all that comes together to tell a story that, like we've been saying, is just like more tender, like more reflective, and kind of it's like it's very earnest. Like it doesn't feel it's not like a dark film by any means. Like there's some darkness in it, but it's more like tender, as I was saying, like than that. And the romance element of it is very like optimistic, I guess is something I would describe it as. It's one of those movies where it kind of puts things into like perspective, or like looks at a bigger picture, whether that's with regards to like our place on earth or our place in time, and like what you contribute to the world, and also like what your experiences like add up to. And I think that's just something where, within the context of like a fun, almost like fantasy, it is a fantasy, but like almost like a fairy tale kind of narrative, I thought was interesting to see, like in this particular, especially like in today's landscape when it comes to like theatrical and like movies in general. George Miller, there's a lot of different like cultural elements and things like that, there's the conference she goes to in this movie is in Istanbul, as we were saying. So you get to see some of Turkey, and then but most of it, is in this hotel room with flashbacks to the djinn's life and his experiences and how he got to where he is now, and then it kind of tails off from there. But I really liked the relationship between the two. I think Tilda Swinton, Idris Elba, people are gonna have different opinions of this, but I thought that their chemistry was pretty good. Again, it just comes off as very like sweet. Like it's not
right.
It's not oh god, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not
there's a lot of companionship more so than like,
it's not even like
romantic
or like sexualized or anything necessarily. Like it's just, and there's nudity in the movie, but it's not like it's not really in relation to that necessarily, and it's not like done in a way that's like distasteful necessarily. I'm sure other people will have like thoughts on that, but to me, it just, even with all these different things, there's violence, there's some sexual content there, and that kind of thing. It's all done in a way that just comes off as like kind of fantastical, and done in the to the degree that it's paying tribute to this like these bigger ideas, and the ideas are they're kind of rejecting almost like the thing I'm thinking of, because I've been writing about Everything Ever All at Once a little bit recently, just thinking about how that movie and this movie both rejects like nihilism in some ways. Like, yes, there's bad things that happen, and they happen to you and they happen to other people, but ultimately, some things you could say like happen for a reason, or there are good things to find like in those situations. And what comes of that, I think at the end like worked for me. And I was
Agreed.
pleased. I think to me, the weakest element, if I had to like do some critiques and why my score is a little bit lower, is I think getting started, it was a little bit I don't want to say rocky, but it took a little while to get going and to like settle into the film. And it's very George Miller. Like, there's lots of George Miller isms. Like, he does not shy away from his style, or like trying to fit into like a certain like look for the movie, or like certain um edits, or like the way he writes the characters and things like that. He just does what he wants, and it works, I think, to most of the time. Similar to like Fury Road, I think there's a lot of things in that, like the first time I saw it, I was like, what the hell is this? Or like, what is that supposed to be? Or what does that even mean?
Right.
And then when I see it for the 10th time, because I love the movie so much, I'm like, oh, God, I love that they wrote that line like that, or that they had that performance be that way, or they designed that character like that. And this is, again, much smaller scale, as you were mentioning. It's not as intense, or it definitely does not like have the same action or anything like that. But the same, I think, ideas are kind of there as far as how the creative approach. And but once it got settled in after the first 15-20 minutes, and you have these two characters together and the stories start to unravel, that was very fun. And it was like a fairy tale book. And by the end, I was like, oh, that was just a really sweet, like, nice movie, and I'm glad it got made, and I'm glad I got to see it like on the big screen. And it was just one of those movies, like, it's going to be hard to compare it to anything else you see this year, whether you like it or not. It is fairly original from the standpoint of like what movies are getting made nowadays and what movies are being released in theaters.
Right. And I think outside of like this actual like story itself, just talking about like the uniqueness of it, is like the format almost. Like it has almost like the sort of fairy tale storybook, not subtitles, like segments and stuff, chapters, I think is what they had called them. But it kind of just like, I'm trying to think of the right words to describe this, like the way that it was like, she opens the story by like telling, as the narrator, talking about the movie, and then like we see some narrative action, and then
Right.
she in turn is told a story, and so then we go into other stories, and it's just like in one story out of a story, in one story out of a story. So it's not like this, there is an overarching story about Alethea and her wishes, but in the same time we're getting told other stories. So that kind of makes it feel, going back to like your unique message, like it's not point A, point B, point C, and then that's the end of it, but instead like we're having these stories within the story, like the like Russian nesting dolls almost of stories. But I thought that was a cool way to put this, and then it obviously circles back all the way to the beginning with her like writing her own story, basically, which is what we are seeing.
Exactly.
But I thought that was sort of meta, and like the approach to the genie story, because as I was reading in that description here, it's this, it's not like, okay, there's a genie and it's someone who's never heard of a genie before and they like make their wishes, whatever, but like the whole cautionary tale, because she is like a literary scholar, essentially. She like knows all of the warnings, all of like she's very analytical in the way that she approaches this. So it's not just your typical, I've got my 3 wishes and I'm gonna wish for love and money and whatever, but instead it's like painstakingly almost of like making sure that you're doing everything the right way and not just kind of going off on a whim.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think the last thing I would touch on with this one is that I also really liked, again, George Miller wrote it. It is an adaptation of sorts. I think it's based on some. I'm not sure how
It's
old
a
the
short
story.
story, I believe.
Yeah, I'm not sure how old that is or like where that comes from necessarily, but so I don't know if like how much of the story was lifted or dialogue and things of that nature. But I thought he did a good job in a lot of ways of just keeping it again in that mode where it's like fantastical and it's like romantic. And I think there was a lot of lines. I went and saw this with Reagan. She loved it. Like she liked it even more than I did. And I think what was such a plus for her and like what was so appealing is that just the dialogue and like the way their banter kind of goes back and forth and the way that again the relationship kind of develops over the telling of these stories. There's some really great like lines in there. I'm not sure again if he came up with these, but there's almost like a Shakespearean quality to some of them. Like they just the like figurative language and things like that. It just really like stuck with me or like would stick out to me like as I was hearing it. And like I would stop and think like, huh, like that's just like a really interesting way of putting that. And I thought that it was just creative in that way, even in particular. And that kind of meshed well with like the visuals we were seeing, is that the writing was also in that same mode. And I think that was definitely a benefit. And just the way, again, it goes from with that banter back and forth, like the really colorful language, and then it ends up like that colorful language is represented within the movie itself, like not just the images, but also how the relationship develops and how the movie kind of ends up concluding.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Totally a unique viewing experience. I think
Yeah, no doubt.
I know sometimes we say that in like we don't know what else to say, but unique. So it can be taken in a negative sense, but in this case, I want to clarify, it is a positive message here.
Yeah,
I think Johnny and I both enjoyed this one quite a bit, whether it's what we expected or not. The end result was something that was definitely enjoyable. And I don't know if you have any closing thoughts, but I would definitely recommend this for someone who I don't know, like me, I kind of went in, other than that trailer, I kind of went in blind, didn't know a ton about it, but I was still able to enjoy this definitely. So I would recommend it. It'll be different than anything that you've seen so far this year, which is definitely a good thing to keep it mixed up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting because this, on the back of Fury Road, 7 years later, God, I just think that my anticipation was so high for this, and I'd heard of it for years and knew that he was developing it. And now that I see it, it's interesting because I had it so high on like many of my lists over the last few years, like, oh, I can't wait to see that. Like it's his next movie, like it's coming out. And it gradually slid down just because like I feel like I learned more about it and it was changing like maybe what I thought it was going to be. But still, even though I didn't think it was like necessarily amazing or great, even I still thought it was like a pleasant like experience and like was worthwhile, and not like worthwhile as a creative like endeavor, but also like as a viewing experience. So I think that's really it. I think that yeah, I definitely recommend giving it a shot. Like go check it out, go hit a matinee or something like that. It won't be in theaters very long, I suspect, but it's worth seeing. And if you can see it in the big screen, especially, I think is the way to go. But other than that, I think that kind of caps off our 3,000 years. Zach, do you want to take it away?
Thank you all for listening to another episode of Inside the Film Room. We appreciate the support, whether you're here for the movies, the TV, the news, anything in between. We appreciate you listening week in and week out.
Absolutely. Couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much for your support. And to continue that, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, give us a like on Facebook, and subscribe on YouTube. Keeping up with us there, you can keep up with any giveaways we're doing, promos, new content. We have articles, videos, all that good stuff. And on YouTube, we are posting these podcast episodes as well. So you can find those there. And those accounts can all be found at Inside Film Room.
And while you are at it, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter, The Rewind, so you can get all of our content delivered straight to your inbox. And also be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, YouTube, anywhere you can find a podcast. We are there. And we won't be seeing you next week. Enjoy your Labor Day. Have a good holiday weekend, and we will see you the following week.